So good morning, it's Thursday, December 2nd, and we are just talking about the definition of the coefficient of variation and what it really means. So the coefficient of variation is your ratio of the standard deviation as compared to the mean, which is saying what percent of the mean is your standard deviation. So I liked Wikipedia actually has a couple of good examples as far as numbers. So if you look at the first data set right here where my mouse is, the set of numbers are all 100. So your standard deviation is 0 because your average is 100 and none of the data points are varying from the average at all. Okay. Now the second set, the data set is 90, 100, and 110. The mean is 100 again, because if you average them, you get 100. But this time there's a standard deviation of 8.165, which means that the 110 is above the mean and the 90 is below the mean. And it's only if you take that standard deviation and divide by the mean, you get 0.08165, which says that the standard deviation is only 8.2, basically 8.165% of the mean. So it's pretty small. It's not varying by much. Now the data set, the last data set, you have a data value as low as 1 and a data value as high as 88, and the average is 27.9, which is pretty low. And that's because you can see that most of the data is really between 1 and 10 up to 1 and 40, and 65 and 88 are definitely outliers. There. Okay. So it says its standard deviation is 32.9. The standard deviation, what the data is varying by, is more than where the average even is. And so the ratio, that coefficient of variation, is over 1. So the bigger that coefficient of variation becomes, the more spread out your data is. And when it's over 1, it's the worst. Then you wouldn't really ever want to use that in something that can't be 0 or something that could be negative. So when we talk about temperature down here, examples of misuse, we would never use coefficient variation because it can have a negative value and 0 doesn't really mean 0. So that's an example of when we really wouldn't want to use it.